afternoon, everybody. This is Robin Ayub from the Localization Fireside Chat, and welcome to another episode. Today, we are recording an episode 110, and we have been doing this. I have been doing this since 2023. We've talked to about 110 executives and influencers and decision makers in the Localization Fireside Chat. Again, as a reminder, the Localization Fireside Chat is unscripted, unbiased, unfiltered conversation with people such as my guest today. And this channel is also worth mentioning that it's not sponsored by anybody. That's a personal initiative I started on my own because I like the language industry. And I thought, why not have more conversations in the language industry? That it's not pushed or biased by anybody, just two individuals having a coffee like we're going to be having today and getting to know each other. My first time meeting Bryan, and Bryan is first time on this channel. So Bryan Murphy, the CEO of Smartling. Bryan, welcome to the channel, and honor to have you with me. I really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time to be on the podcast today.
Thanks, Robin. It's great to be here, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. I'm excited.
Thanks so much, Bryan. As we say on this channel, everybody's got a story, and I keep asking people, because I'm fishing for an interesting story in the localization industry, from the localization industry. What's your story? How did you get into the localization industry, if I may ask?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I'm afraid I don't have a super interesting story, probably like many, but I will say, so I've been in the business of building software applications and e-commerce applications and websites for 20 years or so, past 20 years or so. And all of them have been global, internationalized, and I've localized them all. I've translated, localized them all. And it's always been a pain, right? So it's like, okay, oh gosh, I want to do this as few times as possible. I want to do the minimum amount of content because I got to, download the content, send it to the translator, bring it back, push it back up. It's this whole exercise, right? And about 4 years ago, I got a phone call from a private equity firm that I know, Battery, and they said, hey, we're looking at this translation localization space. Will you help us take a look? And I've known these guys for 10 years or so, and this is something that I do. I help them out and with some others and look around and help them develop a thesis. And the more I looked, the more excited I got about this space. I'm like, holy smokes, this is like a $50 billion global market that is largely serviced by firms that do translation. I'm going to call it the old-fashioned way. A lot of project managers, a lot of translators, doing it the way that I was used to doing it myself. And then we came across a handful of companies that were cloud-based solution providers that had this translation management platform and doing machine learning and neural machine translation. And I'm like, wow, so I can come into this space and I can automate translation. I can do it for a fraction of the cost. And it's not as good as the traditional translation, but it's faster, it's cheaper, but it's not as good. I like that because that to me is how you come in. This is the innovator's dilemma, right? You come in with a faster, cheaper solution. Maybe it's not as good, maybe it's narrow scope, all that kind of thing, but you work your way up and you disrupt the space. So long story short, that's what got me really excited about it. So we made the decision to buy Smartling. We did that. And I got so excited about it that I wanted to come in not as a board member, but as CEO. And so that's what
drove you into it.
Yeah.
Now, Bryan, where are you located? People are interested on the channel to know where people are located. We talk to people from different parts of the world.
Yeah, so I'm currently in Connecticut, so a suburb of New York City. So normally New York is our office. We also have an office in Dublin, and I spend a lot of my time on the road all around the world. In fact, I did four countries in 5 days last week, and I'm heading back to Europe next week.
Absolutely. Now, for those who are not familiar with Smartling, and I don't know, they must be like under a rock somewhere if they're not familiar with Smartling yet, because you guys do a good job on pushing information out to the market. Tell us a little bit about Smartling. What is Smartling, I guess, and keep in mind, the listener for this channel generally are not from the industry. They come from the outside the industry, looking in, trying to get to know the industry, what's possible, what's available, etc.
Sure. So the way I describe Smartling is that we're an AI translation platform that help global companies create localized experiences their customers will love, right? So our customers like IBM, Disney, Tesla, um, Coinbase, Verizon, large and small global enterprises, and they've got websites, they've got marketing communications, they've got web and mobile applications that they need to have localized for the countries that they do business with. And what we do is we help them do that through automation, whether it's integration to their tech stack, through dynamic workflow management, right? So where am I sending this translation, automating all of that, and then in the translation itself, whether we're doing it with neural machine translation, AI, or combining those solutions with a human in the loop to finish it off, or with third party translation agencies. We have our clients have literally hundreds of translation agencies that are in the Smartling platform every day doing translations for them. So that's the way to think about it. I think in a nutshell, basically the kind of the value prop or what we're able to do for our customers is that we're able to help them translate, localize about 8 times as much content for the same budget as traditional translation.
So, question for you again on that. Are you a tech company that offers services, just for the layman's terms and,
Yeah,
for the simplicity of the idea? Or are you both? Or are you a service company that sells tech?
that's a great question. We're a technology company that offers services, is the way to think about it. So it's our cloud-based, it's our SaaS software platform. It's our machine learning. It's all of those elements of translation. Where our customers require additional service, we'll provide it for them as well. Whether it's one of our linguists, once again, to provide that human touch that may be required on very, very high value content, or even to manage services. We have a lot of customers that come to us and say, hey, I just need my stuff translated. I have no idea how to do it. Will you just do it for us? And we're like, yeah, we'll be happy to do that.
How big is Smartling in terms of people? However you want to quantify that, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we're growing pretty rapidly. We're over a couple hundred employees today, and we probably have another 10, 15,000 translators, linguists within that have been certified within our Smartling network.
And what is, Bryan, let's say, you got like a whiteboard out there and you're trying to chart your ideas. What's a typical customer would look like in an ideal situation?
There's probably two buckets of customers. About half of our customers are global, 6,000 companies, right? Big brands that already have big global footprints and do a lot of translation currently today. And then I would say the second bucket is sort of up and comers, right? So these are Series B, Series C technology companies that are growing their business and they're just beginning to grow their business internationally. Maybe they've expanded into 5 countries and they're quickly learning that they're not getting the conversion rates that they want on their website. They're not getting the engagement that they want. They're not getting the leads coming in from their websites or for their marketing communications. And they've recognized that, hey, you know what? We need to have localized content, or they're growing past their ability. If they're using kind of traditional methods for localization, they're having trouble scaling that localization. That's typically where we'll come in. And basically the simplest way to think about what we do is once we implement Smartling, they see their costs decrease by about 60%, turnaround times get cut 60 to 70%, right? And delivering a higher level of quality.
And no, thanks for this. Appreciate it. You're just hitting the nail on the head in terms of the information that we're probably sharing on this podcast today. I really appreciate it. But there is, as you know, I mean, the industry today is going through transformation, or I call it metamorphosis, on a variety of levels, specifically technology. And I don't know why this industry is so afraid of technology. At least my feeling. The nostalgia around getting things done the old-fashioned way, I guess, still entrenched in many parts of our industry. Some companies are leading the way. Some companies are still in the old classical fashion of doing translation. And remember, we're talking about 19,000 different companies in the industry, right? That's the representation of our industry today. So there is a huge debate going on right now. Should the industry be tech driven or service driven? Where, Smartling or you personally, where do you sit on that strategy?
Well, I would say, listen, I empathize with the localization managers out there and the marketing folks and the product folks that are responsible for localization because they they get yelled at. I
Yeah.
think that's the reason why they're afraid. Like they don't get like they're kind of they're sort of like unspoken heroes in this world, right? They don't get a lot of the fame and glory. They kind of operate in the background until the CEO gets a phone call from somebody that says that they mistranslated something in Japanese, right? So I think it's once bitten, twice shy a little bit. So once again, I do empathize with our customers. So one of the things that we work real hard in doing is trying to help our customers. And when I say customers, these are the marketing folks, the localization managers, the product folks, communicate the value of what they do more clearly within their organization using business language, right? So that seems to help. So for example, when we're talking about technology, right? So technology has the ability to dramatically improve the turnaround time, has the ability to dramatically reduce cost or give them the ability to translate more content for the same budget, and improve quality. So those are all important KPIs for localization. But what about translating that into language that the business understands? Like, hey, we helped you grow your international revenue by X% last year by doing X, Y, and Z. We helped increase the number of sales qualified leads coming from these websites by X, Y, and Z, or increase engagement. So by doing those things, by being able to communicate in that language, I think we're able to help our customers increase their budgets, increase their breadth and their awareness within their organizations.
And so, on that same note, um, if you were to talk about a little bit about, I mean, if on everybody's mind now, I don't go to any conversation unless I hear, AI this, AI that, and every single conversation. It doesn't matter what the industry, specifically in the language industry, where does and how far is AI being utilized in Smartling? In what way, I would say?
Sure. Well, we've been using, I'll use my air quotes, AI for the past 12 years or so, in the form of machine learning and neural machine translation. Right. Everyone in the industry is familiar with those things. It was I should say, large language models, which came about two and a half years ago. And I remember sitting there. GPT had just been rolled out to the public. I logged on, got my account. I had a cup of coffee over the weekend, started playing around with it, and immediately our leadership team were slacking each other because we all did the same thing at the same time, recognizing that this was going to be something different. So really, we've been implementing large language models almost from day one, figuring out how to begin getting value out of this new technology. And what's happened that's interesting, I think this will resonate. Once again, I probably talked to 70 customers last week. And what's fascinating is that I think everything happened at the same time. Every CEO in the world in January told their teams, whether it's sales, marketing, customer service, and translation, I need to see your plan for implementing AI in your function by the end of the year, right? So all of a sudden, all of our customers have turned around and said, help, we need AI in this function. Can you help us? And fortunately, we've been prepared for that. So how do we use AI in Smartling, right? So how do I satisfy that edge? The gamut, we have different ranges of maturity, right, in our or specialization within our capabilities within the localization maturity curve, right? So I'm either super sophisticated and I want to access an LLM directly and do my own prompt engineering, right? We have those customers. That's great. We have that capability in our AI hub today. You can select your large language model, you can prompt it, and you can access your translation memory, glossary, style guide, all the integrations that you have, all the tools that we have. That's a really great solution for folks that want to have that level of control and they have that degree of capability. All the way out to the other end of the spectrum where they're like, I have no idea how to do any of this. I don't want to do it, but my boss told me that we have to have an AI in translation function. Great. We have that solution for them. We handle the whole, it's turnkey AI translation for them, delivering human level quality at a fraction of the cost and turnaround. So, and everything in between. So
Yeah.
that's the answer. So we're having a lot of fun with our customers, helping solve that problem for them.
It's a dilemma for everybody, and especially like I live in Canada, and the biggest we talk about it all the time because translation for somebody who speaks multi languages tend to be a little easier than the people that they speak only one language.
Yes.
And the reason being is that if you do a translation and you happen to be unilingual, there is no, not even rudimentary way of validating if this translation is passable or not. I'm not talking about it from a high caliber linguistic evaluation. I'm just talking about it from an is it understandable? Because you don't. I mean, I don't speak Korean as an example.
Right.
If I put something in AI, comes out Korean, I'm gonna say, well, yeah, it looks like a Korean lettering. That's all I can. That's all I can say about it. But there are some issues being raised on that level. And you're right. You mentioned earlier, until the CEO gets a phone call, then things change. Have you come across that? How do you deal with that?
Absolutely. So, in fact, it was really interesting. We were just speaking at a large AI conference over this past week, and the keynote speaker talked about this, not even specifically related to translation localization, but the fact of the matter is that large language models hallucinate. Problem number one, there is no solution for that currently. They do. The other thing is they're completely variable. I can submit, and we do this test all the time. I can submit the same paragraph to an LLM, and 100 times I will get 100 different translations. They don't have the concept of the tools that we have, like translation memory, glossary, style guide, etc. We can train them, but they kind of act independently, and that's not good for an enterprise. So I always have this conversation with engineers, right? They're like, "Hey, we don't need Smartling anymore. We don't need anything because I connected the API to GPT to our application, and it translates in right at the source." I'm like, "Okay, great. So you just wrote a 30-page technical document. You translated it into 18 languages. The writer is English speaking. What did they just write in Korean?"
True.
You have no idea, right? So that's where the automation is important, of course. The AI translation is important, but the language quality assurance is essential. And it's particularly in this case with using LLMs because they are variable, right? So the same conversation I had with them, I said, "Oh, that's great. So you're using. Let me ask you this question: Are you writing code with AI?" "Oh, yes, we use it all the time." "That's great. So you're publishing direct to prod from GPT?" "Oh, absolutely not." Exactly.
That's right.
Right. So that's sort of my point. Is like what you need for AI is a super powerful tool. We use it extensively, but it is a tool, and what you need is in a sense a tool set in order to manage this powerful technology. Right. And that's really what we're building right now, so that you can do the translation with the AI, you can create custom translations with AI to your brand, right? So translation memory, glossary, style guide. So if I'm Smartling, right, and no matter what language I'm in, I sound like Smartling. A. B, I've got quality assurance tools set around that so that I know that I'm producing high quality content that means what I meant it to say. And I've got my integrations into all of my brownfield tech stacks, so it's automated for scale. And that's really what we do.
Absolutely. Now, as we talk about the issues that we have currently with AI, and I'm a by trade, and I went to school for studying computer science. So I'm a programmer by trade, and found my way into biz dev like later on, halfway through my career. Now, I went back to programming because I found with AI it's easier to and I don't have to refresh my learning, and I don't have to go back to college and restudy all this. So I'm doing some scripting. I'm writing my own code now, and it feels like you mentioned earlier. It feels like it puts the code out, but you still have to create the logic, create the concept, do the architecture of what you're trying to do, and you can modularize and do a whole bunch of things with it, which is fine, but you still intimately involved in the entire design and the process of testing and all that stuff with AI. But I'm finding also, Bryan, that AI is improving over time. So it hasn't been that long we're working with it. So the AI that was like 6 months, a year ago, it's different than it is now, and it's improving. So somebody was putting something on LinkedIn the other day and says, never be AI will never be the same quality as a human. I'm thinking like that's a statement that it's probably this probably it's got on a very short expiry date. What's your take on that human involvement and the trajectory that AI improvement is on?
Sure. So I would agree with that. AI is getting better and better every day, and I think this is part of what I'm after. So if you're familiar with Jevons paradox, right, which says that the more efficient, the more cost effective you make something, the more it gets used, right? So data storage, cloud services are great examples of that, right? You used to ration how much data you had, right? You would delete files. And as the price of that came down and it got easier to use and more integrated, like you store everything. I don't delete anything, right? I definitely believe, and that's part of our vision. If I look out over the next 3 years, I want Jevons paradox to apply to translation localization. In other words, I want translation localization to become a kind of like back process, like data, like cloud services or data storage, so that I don't even think about it anymore.
Yeah.
Now, to make that happen, you need, once again, you need a tool set to make that. You need a system to make that happen. And I think that humans will definitely have a role, but the more efficient, like as we make our linguists more productive. To give you an example, like maybe the kind of standard rule of thumb was that they could produce 2,000 words a day, right? Well, we've tripled, quadrupled that number, and they're making great livings doing that. I'm not paying them less. I actually want to pay them slightly more, right? But I need them to be more productive, because at some point they're going to become operators of this machine. As that Jevons paradox holds true, that volume will come up rapidly, and I need them like operating this machine that's going to be where they're producing 50, 100,000 words a day, and they become specialists at operating this machinery.
Absolutely. Bryan, I'm going to ask you a question. I don't know how you are going to be able to answer this, but I think it's in the same space. Um, and I'm speaking on behalf of the many people that I've spoke to in the industry for many years now. I've been in the industry for 23 years. They always compare Smartling to a proxy solution. So they're always comparing you like to Transifex, Phrase, Localize, or proxy model like Motion Point.
Yep.
So can you address that point? What sets is that true? A, and if not, what sets it apart from Smartling perspective?
That's a great question. So proxy, our GDN, what we call a global delivery network translation proxy, is one of our products. So it works great for certain types of websites and certain types of customers. You know what it works great for is like, once again, that customer is like, you know what, geez, I don't want to have anything to do with it. I just need my website translated. It works great for that. It also works great for really, really large, super, super complicated sites, believe it or not. So we have some of the largest websites in the world using it. In other circumstances, a connector works really well, or an API. Point is, like, once again, those are three tools in the toolbox depending on what your needs are. So when you think about Smartling is an enterprise AI translation solution. So we've been around for 12 years. So we've got almost, regardless of what your use case is, we've probably got an applicable solution for it, whether it's translation proxy, a connector, or an API, just to give you an example.
And thanks for that clarification. I really appreciate it. So do you still think in today's age and the way technology is evolving, do you think that entire proxy model is still viable, Bryan? Do you think still some life to it? Or technology will overtake it at some point, do you think?
We talk about that all the time. Yes, no, I do. We work really hard. Believe it or not, over half of our customers use our proxy solution, and they love it. We're constantly evolving it to keep up with the technology. It is still a very viable and effective and easy to use solution.
Okay, so there's still demand for it.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'll give you an example. Like, so the connectors, I love the connectors. We've got very, very robust connectors. But I'll tell you, things are always changing on the connector front. Websites are very complicated. It's the proxy, if when operated correctly, is a very, very efficient solution to solve for use cases where there are multiple different platforms or technologies that would just be too complex to sort of build a connector or API for each, right? This is just sort of like a one size fits all, just takes care of the whole mess.
Yeah. So, um, just on the note of AI in general, if you don't mind looping back onto that one, because when we talk about MT, like you mentioned earlier briefly, like we started early as an industry. We had and everybody woke up to AI right now, but I'm assuming the industry, based on your definition of AI, they've been using it for 15 years through the rule-based machine translation at the time, and it evolved from there to where we are right now. So everybody's talking about it from a different context. How do you feel Smartling is actually evolving with time when it comes to AI? And I know application development takes time, takes money, takes effort, and it takes investment, and you can't be everything to everybody. But how do you feel where you are right now from an AI perspective in terms of evolution? Do you think you'll
Right.
keep up with it?
Yeah, I hope so. So taking a step back for a second, I've been around long enough to see what I'll call three major technology shifts or developments, right? So I was around when the web got commercialized, right, in the late '90s, right? So that was a massive shift, changed the way the entire world operates, right? Um, Cloud computing came in, mobile came in, and those were like two significant shifts, but not as significant as the internet. I think that AI is as significant as the development of the internet, maybe even more. Right? It has the
Okay.
it has already changed everything that we do, and it's being hyper funded by by states, by companies,
Hmm.
and it's evolving extremely quickly. So how do we keep up with that? Um, we've had to restructure our technology organization to build out an R&D function that is their sole job is to stay on top of that and develop technology around that, and then they feed that into product and engineering, right? So we've developed sort of this conveyor belt. We have a highly efficient engineering team, product team. We do 3,300 releases per year, production releases per year, and like as an engineer, that's a lot, right? So
Hmm.
this is a highly efficient team. So we've built this function within our business that can stay on top of the R&D for AI. As it relates to the AI itself, like how are we using it to create these customer outcomes? Our customers care about, I want to be able to translate more content for the same budget, and I want to reduce my turnaround time. I need to do it fast, right? So those are the big things they care about, and obviously quality. So using AI, we use AI to not only do the translation, right, faster, better, cheaper, but also to start stripping out the manual tasks of translation.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, how much of that you taking place, like that internal automation? Because language industry is famous for creating that minutia internally of
Yes,
moving pieces, files, and
yes,
logging things.
yes. We've really turned our attention to exactly that, which is creating agents that will start taking away sort of the rote tasks of the translation of the localization process, right? So we're looking at where do people spend time doing manual tasks in the translation process and automating those with AI.
Okay.
And that's really what our customers are looking for too. Once again, if our customers are going to go from, I'm going to make it up, translating 1 million words a year to now we bring the price point down and the technology to the point where they can do 10, 15 million words a year and stop rationing, that needs to be automated. And so really that's what we're doing with creating these agentic workflows.
Absolutely. Are you one of those CEOs that gave your staff a goal for AI? You
Of course
mentioned that earlier.
of course I did. Of course I did. It's really funny. I always laugh about like people and CEOs or whatever. Like you always think I'm living in my own little world and only this is happening to me, right? Or this is the way I'm thinking. The reality is that human beings are like, we all think the same way. We have access to the same information. So like we tend to do things now, especially because the world's so connected. We do them all at the same time. So I'm telling you right now, if I did a poll, I would find out that every single company in the world, the CEO in January said, you will have AI in each one of your departments by the end of the year. And
And
it
you're
was,
absolutely correct. You're
yeah,
absolutely correct.
yeah,
I hear a lot about it. I mean, if you take, for instance, publicly traded companies, publicly traded companies, that's the first thing they did, as at least the one I'm aware of.
Yeah.
And somehow the formula got connected to the price share. The share price. Sorry. So when you reduce cost by X, you impact the price by Y in terms of positive impact.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
that's how they sold it internally, I think.
absolutely. We're doing in sales and marketing right now. We're using it to help automate our outreach process. I've asked our engineering team to obviously to utilize it to improve code efficiency and
Mm-hmm.
software development, customer experience. We're building out bots right now that help our customers interact or get answers to questions faster than they could through its normal processes today.
Absolutely. Bryan, when you think about our industry, and this is what, hopefully this conversation helps somebody in our industry or outside the industry. Those LSPs that they don't have their own tech stack, for instance, um, what do you think is going to happen to them? Are they at risk of this evolving market? What's going to happen to those?
I think that, like almost every industry, it's interesting. I'll put it this way too. Right, wrong, or indifferent, translation is an industry. It's one of three that are right in the crosshairs of AI. Marketing is another, copywriting, legal, right? Legal is another one, translation. Those are the three big ones that are right in the, because they have to do with content and content creation, right? So we are in the crosshairs. And so AI is impacting this industry. That genie is on the bottom. It's going nowhere but this way. So my strong advice to translators, to linguists, to localization managers, that want to remain relevant in this industry is you have to understand how to deploy this technology effectively in your organization. Doing so properly, I like to tell people, I tell my team all the time, listen, your job is to get our customers a promotion. That's when we know we're doing our job well. So implementing that and being able to tell the CEO this summer, hey, great news. I was able to triple our content localization for the same budget and cut turnaround times in half using
Yeah,
AI. That's a gold star. You're getting a promotion for that, right?
yeah,
If,
that's right.
if you don't, well, I don't know what's going to happen. That's not great news.
That's right. So you mentioned a little briefly about the content and the content and that content being created by AI, and also we use AI tools to translate the content, basically transform it. Do you see a point in the evolution of our industry that the two will blend? Meaning that, in a question, like if I was trying to create a piece of document in 20 languages, I don't need to translate it anymore. I probably can push it out in 30 languages if technology supports that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, in many ways, we're already doing that. We have connectors to all the content management systems, to the PIM systems, to the CRM systems, to the customer service systems, all of that. So right now what's happening is if I've got content that I'm generating in Adobe or in Contentful or whatever it is, it's connected to Smartling and it's being translated and, in platform in effect. What you're talking about is slightly different, which is, oh, hey, I'm going to use AI to create content, and then I'm going to ask the AI to create 18 versions of this in 18 different languages. Okay, yes, that is certainly possible. Okay, the problem with that is a couplefold. Once again, it goes back to this example. Okay, great. You just wrote this tech doc in 18 different languages. What does it say? Okay,
That's right.
A. B, how did you train it? Were you able to use translation memory? No. Were you able to use your glossary? No. Were you able to use style guide? Yeah, you could create a style guide. Now, okay, let's assume that you know how to write all the prompts and do all that kind of stuff for that application. That's your content side. Our average customer has 5 application integrations with 50 different instances of that, repos, etc. So now I've got to replicate that function across at least 5 applications plus all the repos and create these translation processes for each one of those to make sure they're on brand. How am I checking the quality, et cetera, right? That's not a solution. All right. The solution is have a centralized translation platform like Smartling that does all of those things for you and is able to integrate to those content production and management platforms. We're just a tool. We're specialized. We're the translation button. Okay.
Yeah.
And we provide all the tools to do exactly that.
I know it's a long way to go. I get that. The technology is not there now, and you're right. You bring up a very valid point in terms of validating the output. That's where you're heading with that. Is there a way to validate the output as a natural sort of like person who was raised in that language
Yeah.
would evaluate it?
Yeah.
Then that problem was solved. But you're trying to mimic a human behavior in technology, which is going to take forever to do.
It's going to take forever. Well, and I also say the answer is yes, and it's called Smartling. Okay. Or you can write all that code, do all that prompting, figure out all that stuff that we do for for what? I mean, like pennies. Yeah, it's kind of like I always kind of use the analogy too. I'm like, if I was a salesperson, I could manage my pipeline in Google Sheets. And that would be free, right? Basically free. I could do it today. But if I'm an enterprise and I've got 5,000 salespeople, that doesn't work for me as the enterprise. I need to have like pipeline management and tools and CRM and all that kind of stuff. That's why I pay for products like Salesforce or HubSpot or something like that. It's the same thing with translation localization. I can translate in source, but there's all these other things I need to do. That's why I buy a solution like Smartling because it's got great value.
Right. I think you're tapping on a point that's called insurance policy. I think for like, you want to make sure that keep peace at night when you go, when you produce these things, that you are producing something with a relative degree of certainty that is delivering the right message.
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't. It's like,
yeah, of course.
It's like, why would you? It's once again getting back to why are localization managers fearful of technology? Because they're the ones that get yelled at.
That's right.
Like, you watch, as soon as content producers start producing content in platform, and then they get that phone call from the country manager for Japan and says,
yep.
"Oh my God, you need to pull that down. You just told someone to run my grandmother with a car or something like that, right?"
That's right. That's right.
Like, and then that brings up a great point. Great. How are you going to change that? Like, right. What's the change platform? Okay, now the translation needs to be corrected. Right? I'm just like, my head's exploding as I'm starting to think about what we just unleashed there.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on to the future of the industry, if you don't mind, Bryan. We're going to put our prediction hat on, or the 8 ball, I guess, the magic ball out there, trying to figure out what's going to happen. So, where do you see the biggest disruption happening next in our industry?
Yeah. So I will tell you, I would preface this which is that I've given up trying to predict what AI is doing. It's moving so fast. But that being said, I see generally, I see more for sure. We see this in the data, we see this in the trend, that more and more content is moving to neural machine translation and AI translation, and or a combination of the above. Okay, period, paragraph. The linguists are they're moving from 2,000 words a day to 4 to 6 to 8 to 10. They're getting more productive. So that's definitely happening. So you need to have systems in place that automate all that and are able to do the automated language quality assurance of all that. That I know is happening, and I see that continuing to happen. So unless, as a company, as an enterprise, unless you have the ability to compete with that and deploy that, you're going to be behind the 8 ball, right? Because you're not going to be able to produce as much content as your competitors are. And if you're in this business and you don't have the ability to do that, I think you're going to be in trouble.
And if you had to make one bold prediction about the industry in the next 3 years, what would that be?
In the next 3 years, I think that you're going to see massive consolidation of the providers.
And that's happening. From everybody I talk to, like, the brokers are so busy right now. Everybody's trying to either acquire or be acquired.
Yep.
Out there. Everybody seems to be on that one.
Yes.
Now, I've got a couple of bonus questions for you. If you don't mind, we still have a few minutes.
Sure.
If Smartling were a startup, again, in 2025, not before, what problem would you solve first?
Boy, that's a good question. I think I would solve the AI translation problem. I think I would figure out how to do the very best AI translation, fastest, cheapest, bestest.
And now, my last question before we wrap it up: what's one misconception people still have about Smartling, or you personally, that you'd love to clear up?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I think that we have two misconceptions about us. One is that we either don't allow third-party LSPs to use our platform. That's not true. The vast majority of translation in the platform for our, hundreds of clients is done by third parties. So we have good relationships with them. We have tens of thousands of users. Uh, and then the second misconception is that we don't do translation. So
Get that
the,
out of the way.
yeah, the mirror image of both. So those are the two.
Excellent. And Bryan, is there any other comments would you like to add in before we wrap it up?
No, this has been great. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. I just, I think, from once again, from my perspective, we kind of talked about this. I really do approach this industry and my job in this company as a customer of translation localization. So I'm one of those people that in all our meetings, we put a chair in the room and I say, this is the customer, whatever we're talking about, let's not talk about features. Let's talk about customer outcomes. What does our customer need? And that's that's been a fun process for me over the last 3.5 years ago. Once again coming in as a customer, like here's what I want. Here's what I wanted all along. And so we've been really kind of focused on that.
That's very refreshing, and I really appreciate your time, Bryan. And I love the idea of thinking like a customer. Many of our translation or language industry companies, having talked to, I want to say the majority of them, they think the opposite direction. So we develop the product, then we sell the product. I guess developing something around what the customer thinks and wants is this where you want to be. So I really appreciate your time, Bryan. It was a pleasure for me to speaking with you, meeting you the first time. Hopefully it's not your last time on this channel. Hopefully we'll get you back in for an update. I really appreciate your time.
Great, Robin. I really appreciate it. It was great talking with you and looking forward to the next time.
Thanks, Bryan. And for our audience, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. If you're coming on YouTube, thanks for watching us. If you're coming on the audio podcast, thanks for listening in. And if you're engaging with us on the blog site, where we wrap up the interviews such as this one, we put it on our blog site. Thanks again. I really appreciate your support. Again, this channel is something I created. I personally passionate about it. It is not sponsored by anybody except my crazy idea that I have to be very, very passionate about this industry. So thanks again for all your support. Really appreciate it.